Welcome everyone! In this video, we are going to be diving into my top 5 best non-XL teams for the Great League. Now guys, not only does this list not include any XL Pokemon in the Great League, but it also excludes the Legendary Pokemon. Because I recognize that not everyone has access to the resources to build the pricey XLs or the hard to get legendaries for the Great League. So I wanted to give you guys some very solid teams that can definitely give you some nice results in the Great League that don't happen to include XLs or legendaries. A lot of these teams are very solid. A lot of the Pokemon on this list will be quite familiar to many of you. And very, very solid teams on this list. And I'm excited to dive into them. So without further ado, let's have a look at team number 1. All right, guys, here we go. Team number 1. And it is a very solid team for the Great League. And it leads with Trevenant on the lead, Galarian Stunfisk as your safe swap, and Walrein in the back to close the game strong. All three of these Pokemon work beautifully together, as the back two Pokemon want nothing to do with the fighters, and Trevenant can absolutely do very well against many of the fighters in this meta, including Scrafty, which I'm sure a lot of you are itching to point out, but we will dive into that as we look at the matchups here. But first, let's have a look at the scorecard. And here we go, not bad, decent scorecard for team number 1. You get a B for coverage, B for bulk, an A for safety, and a B for consistency. Not bad at all for a team that doesn't have legendaries or XLs on it. So let's dive into these matchups here. Trevenant is always a very powerful lead in the Great League. You're going to be winning lead a lot, and at the very least, grabbing a shield advantage with Trevenant on the lead. You just really have to watch out for those normal types and the dark types, of course, like Scrafty. Now, I wanted to touch on Scrafty because it's a lot closer with Trevenant than you think, and if you happen to encounter it on the lead, you actually have to stay in there to play that out. You have to play out the 2 shield, and you have to call a bait. That is the key to winning against Scrafty on the lead with Trevenant. You will want to get off Seed Bomb. They will likely no-shield the first Seed Bomb and look to build up to the foul play. You will shield that because they will likely go for it, and then you can get off another Seed Bomb. And if they no-shield that, then you can go ahead and take the Scrafty out, but you're going to have to start shielding from then on out as well. No shielding, no shielding, because you can't go completely down on shields, but you can still, you can soft lose lead with Trevenant as well. That's fine too, because both Pokemon in the back do very well, and if they're leading with a Scrafty, it is not likely that they will have another fighter in the back, so you're fine to play that out with Scrafty, but you do want to get it either very low on health or just take it out completely with Trevenant if you can. Everything else is pretty straightforward. Licky Tongue leads, you're getting out of there. You've got 2 decent answers to Licky Tongue in the back. Altaria, you'll want to get the heck out of there. Trevenant wants nothing to do with Altaria if it doesn't have to go up against it. And you have 2 amazing answers to Altaria in the back on this team. And you can actually, the Araquanid, if you run into a Araquanid on the lead, that's actually not too bad. As long as you can shield up the big Bug Buzz, which they will most likely go for if you stay in, you're going to be doing just fine. And you can go straight Shadow Ball on Araquanid, and they will likely no-shield those unless they are extremely weak to Trevenant in the back. But other than that, pretty straightforward. Diggersby is a little tricky as well. That's the other one I wanted to touch on a little bit. So you can tank a Fire Punch from Diggersby. So you can no-shield the first Fire Punch, and you will CMP tied to the Seed Bomb. You just go straight Seed Bomb, of course, on Diggersby. And you will want to look to shield the second Fire Punch. You will CMP tie again to the Seed Bomb. And once you shield up that second Fire Punch, if they shield the Seed Bomb, you can go into Stunfisk and look to play from there. Walrein is the hard counter to Diggersby, so you never want to safe swap into your hard counter. You always want to go into the soft counter when you're safe switching out. So that's team number one. Pretty straightforward, pretty solid team for the Great League. Decent scorecard for team number one, and that is Trevenant on the lead, Stunfisk on the safe swap, and Walrein in the back to close the game strong. That is team number one, and with all that said, let's have a look at team number two. Alright guys, here we go. Team number two. Another pretty solid team for the Great League, and it leads with Altaria on the lead, Vigoroth as your safe swap, and Shadow, Alolan Marowak in the back to close the game strong. Pretty solid team for team number two here. Let's have a look at this scorecard here. And not bad, decent scorecard. You get a B for coverage, C for bulk, B for safety, and an A for consistency. You do lose a little bit of the bulk by going with the Shadow version of Alolan Marowak. I will say though, if you go with the non-Shadow, the only difference is you get a B for bulk and a C for safety. So you could really go either way there, although the Shadow does outperform the non-Shadow. So do keep that in mind. All right, so let's have a look at these matchups here. Altaria is always a very strong lead. You just gotta work around the steel types, which is why we have these two Pokemon in the back. But the one glaring weakness for team number two happens to be that tanky water bunny known as Azumarill. Azumarill's going to be a handful for this team. Not going to lie, guys. It will take a team effort. So let's break down Azumarill, because that is the one core breaker and the one glaring weakness for team number two. So if you encounter it on the lead, you're going to have to stay in there a little bit. Altaria is quite bulky. It can definitely tank an Ice Beam. An Ice Beam does about a little over 2/3 of its health, but you are resisting that fast move pressure. If they're not running Ice Beam, you can also tank a Play Rough as well. Play Rough actually does less damage because that's only single super effective as opposed to double super effective, which is what Ice Beam would be. So a Play Rough does about half of your health. So if they're running Play Rough, it's a little bit better for you. But you're going to have to get the Azumarill down to about 50% health before making a play into Vigoroth. That is how you play Azumarill. Getting it to about 50% health makes it much more manageable for your two Pokemon in the back, while also allowing you to preserve your Altaria just in case they've got something in the back that Altaria can easily beat, something like a fighter or a grass type, or maybe even a Swampert. So that's how I would approach Azumarill with team number two. But other than that, team number two is quite strong. There's nothing else that can just outright beat all three of these Pokemon on paper in the one shield scenario. You want any steel type like Stunfisk, Registeel, and of course Bastiodon, you're getting out of there. Bastion's a little tricky, a little more tricky than the other two prominent steel types in this meta, as Bastiodon also has a strong matchup against Alolan Marowak. But either way, you're not staying in there on any steel type. You're going to go right into Vigoroth, try and flip switch if you can, or grab a shield advantage and then look to play from there. But other than the steel types and Azumarill, I mean, the steel types aren't even really a major issue outside of Bastiodon. Both Pokemon in the back have solid victories over the other two prominent steel types, being Registeel and Stunfisk. But everything else you're going to be doing just fine on. Altaria is quite powerful and wins a lot on lead in the Open Great League. So that is team number two. Decent scorecard. And a very solid team overall. And that is Altaria on the lead, Vigoroth on the safe swap, and Alolan Marowak, Shadow in the back to close the game strong. That is team number two. And with all that said, let's have a look at team number three. All right, guys, here we go. Team number three. Another Super solid team for the Great League. And it leads with Nidoqueen, Shadow Nidoqueen on the lead, Umbreon on the safe swap, and Shadow Walrein in the back to close it strong. Let's have a look at the scorecard here. And not bad. Pretty solid scorecard for team number 3. You get a B all across the board, straight Bs. You get a B for coverage, B for bulk, B for safety, and a B for consistency. That is not bad at all for a team with no legendaries and no XLs on it in the Great League. Let's have a look at these matchups here. So, Shadow Nidoqueen, it's quite scary on the lead. It can do a lot of things. The damage output on Shadow Nidoqueen is absolutely insane, especially when you start getting off those poison fangs. Not a lot of things will want to stay in on a Shadow Nidoqueen lead. So you just really have to watch out for Galarian Stunfisk. That could be a problem. You're not going to stay in there. On G-Fisk, you're going to go right into Umbreon. Look to whittle away at the G-Fisk. They may not stay in on that, and hopefully you can grab a shield advantage with Umbreon. And if you can, that makes the Nidoqueen matchup a little better for it. Stunfisk. Medicham. It's not so bad. Medicham on paper beats all 3 of these Pokemon in the 1 shield, but in the 2 shield, Nidoqueen absolutely dominates Medicham, and that is where you will encounter it on the lead in the 2 shield. So Medicham, you can stay in there and play that out. Same goes for Altaria. That's a little bit different. You don't necessarily have to stay in there, as you've got 2 pretty good answers to Altaria in the back. Maybe stay in there to debuff that defense a little bit and really shred with the poison jabs before making a play into Umbreon. That's how I would play Altaria. But anything like a Swampert, any ground type you're getting out of there, it's just not worth it to stay in there. You've got 2 solid answers to Swampert on the lead, so you're just going to go into Umbreon on the safe swap. And the same goes for Diggersby. Opposing Nidoqueens, I wouldn't stay in there either. It's just too much of a game of chicken, too much of a 50-50 type of deal where you have to, are they going to throw that Earth Power? Are they going to bait? It's not worth it. I would just go into Umbreon and look to play on from there on the Nidoqueen mirror in the lead. Ghost types, of course, that's why we've got Umbreon on this team, and you've also got Walrein, which I believe beats all of the ghost types with the exception of Jellicent in this meta. Yeah, pretty solid team for team number 3. All the matchups are pretty straightforward. Very decent scorecard. You get Bs all across the board. Pretty solid team for team number 3. And that is Shadow Nidoqueen on the lead, Umbreon on the safe swap, and Walrein, Shadow in the back to close the game strong. So that is team number 3. And with all that said, let's have a look at team number 4. All right, guys, here we go. Team number 4, another very strong team for the Great League, and it consists of Altaria on the lead, Galarian Stunfisk as your safe swap, and Scrafty in the back to close the game strong. Super solid team here for team number 4. Let's have a look at this scorecard here. And not bad. Very solid scorecard here for team number 4. You get a B for coverage, A for bulk, B for safety, and a B for consistency. Not bad at all. Super solid scorecard for team number 4. Let's have a look at these matchups here. So, as with team number 2, Altaria, again, very strong lead option in the Open Great League. You just have some problems with, of course, the steel types and the fairies. Particularly Azumarill. So, Azumarill, yet again, another glaring weakness to team number 4. You're going to play Azumarill leads the same way you're going to play them with team number 2. That is, stay in there, whittle away at the Azumarill with your Sky attacks. You want to get it down to about 50% health before making a play into Stunfisk. And then you're going to look to play from there. Like I said, you can tank one of any move from Azumarill. And you'll want to really just whittle away. That'll just make it a little bit more manageable for your 2 Pokemon in the back. Azumarill just takes a team effort when you're leading with Altaria. But other than that, again, this is a very strong team. The 2 Pokemon in the back are meant to protect Altaria from the strong steel types. And unlike team number 2, all the steel types can be handled by the 2 Pokemon in the back. And that does include Bastiodon as well. But other than that, again, Walrein, all the ice types, you're getting the heck out of there. And to Stunfisk, Stunfisk has a very strong 2 shield matchup with Walrein. And if you're swapping immediately, that's the scenario that you will be met with. The 2 shield up against Walrein, and you do win that. Other than that, Altaria is going to be doing very well on the lead on team number 4. Not a whole lot that just outright dominates team number 4 here. It is very strong, and that scorecard really reflects that. You get a B for just about everything except for bulk. You get an A for bulk. That's a very solid scorecard for team number 4. Very strong team overall. And that is Altaria on the lead, Stunfisk on the safe swap, and Scrafty in the back to close the game strong. That is team number 4. And with all that said, let's have a look at team number 5. All right, guys, last but certainly not least, we've got team number 5. And it consists of Venusaur on the lead, Galarian Stunfisk as your safe swap, and Skarmory in the back to close the game strong. Very solid ABB style team for team number 5 here. Let's have a look at the scorecard here. And pretty solid scorecard across the board for team number 5. You get straight Bs all across the board. B for coverage, B for bulk, B for safety, and a B for consistency. Not bad. So let's have a look at these matchups here. Now, I will say that this is the one team. It's meant to be an anti-charm team. Charmers don't have anywhere to go, but if you're met with a Talonflame, you're going to be in some trouble, guys. This is one team where if you have a Bastiodon, you'll want to swap Skarmory out for Bastiodon if you're seeing a lot of Talonflames. You could also swap Skarmory out for Swampert as well if you're seeing a lot of Talonflames. But if you're not seeing too many in your ELO range, you're fine going with Skarmory. And you're going to have a good, solid team here for team number 5. So Venusaur on the lead is going to do very well, of course, up against the fighters. It's just with any steel type, like Registeel could be a problem. But, guys, Venusaur is resisting all of Registeel's charge moves. And Frenzy Plant absolutely smacks everything, guys. Even resisted, it really adds up against Registeel. So you can stay in there and tank the first Zap Cannon or Focus Blast. And by then you'll be able to get off a couple of Frenzy Plants before making a play into Stunfisk. That'll get the Registeel within Earthquake range if they decide to stay in on it. You just don't want the Registeel anywhere near your Skarmory. And Trevenant, I wanted to go over Trevenant. Not a big deal on the lead, as you do have an amazing answer to it in the form of Skarmory. But you can stay in there, and you can grab a shield with Frenzy Plant. They will either shield, most likely, because they're going to be weak to Venusaur in the back. 9 out of 10 Trevenants will assuredly compared with an Azumarill or a Stunfisk. You don't want to stay in there and tank that Shadow Ball because you want to get the Venusaur aligned onto the Azumarill. So you can either grab a shield or do a lot of resisted damage with a Frenzy Plant. You do outpace to the Frenzy Plant, and then if you're really good, you'll catch that Shadow Ball onto Stunfisk. And then look to play from there. And everything else is pretty straightforward. Bastiodon leads. You can actually stay in there and win the 2 shield up against Bastiodon. That's how OP Venusaur is. I believe you need 3 Frenzy Plants plus the Vine Whips to KO. But you don't want to risk swapping out because you run the very possible risk of that Bastiodon finding its way to your Skarmory. So the best bet, although tempting to swap out, is to actually stay in there and take out the Bastiodon, and you should have a good game from then on out. And that's really about it. All the flyers are getting out of there into Stunfisk, and yeah, that's pretty straightforward. Very solid team for team number 5. The Charmers absolutely have nowhere to go. And you've got a very solid scorecard here for team number 5. Very solid team overall. And that is Venusaur on the lead, Stunfisk on the safe swap, and Skarmory in the back to close the game strong. And that about wraps it up, guys, for my top 5 best non-XL teams for the Great League. Like I said, I know we don't all have the resources to invest into the expensive XL builds for the Great League. And a lot of those legendaries like Defense Form Deoxys and Registeel can be hard to obtain if they're not in the raids. So I wanted to give you guys 5 solid non-XL, non-legendary teams that you could have some success with in the Great League. And I think we were able to accomplish that with these 5 teams. So, guys, I had a blast. I hope you all enjoyed. As always, I thank you for watching, and keep up the grind. Thank you, guys.